to me, if you look at his resume, it's very clear what kind of a coach Kyle Shanahan is.
Okay.
He's a coordinator. He's not a coach. And I'm going to say what I mean by that. A coach is someone, I consider a coach a position coach. A coach coaches players. And you're working with a specific position group on the techniques, how to get better playing that position. If it's wide receiver, how to run routes, how to get off the line of scrimmage, how to beat press, all the little techniques. You're an expert in those. He did that for 2 years in his life. He was a wide receiver coach for 1 year. He was a quarterback coach for 1 year. Then since then, he's been a coordinator since he was 29. A coordinator is a very difficult job, and it's very valuable. They get paid a lot of money, but it's way different. You coach coaches.
Yeah.
You're not hands-on with players, right? You take the work that they do, and then you build a game plan around it, and you scout the other team, and you call plays. Kyle Shanahan is where he is because of how he calls plays and how he sequences them and how he puts together a game plan. But in terms of like hands-on coaching, teaching with players, he can't point to one player ever that he got better, that he improved. And that, I'm not saying it makes him a fraud as a coach, but when you talk about his inability to improve a quarterback, he never did that. Bill Walsh did that. Andy Reid did that, but this guy never did.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, I coach, right? So I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I'm not a skill set coach, right? Like so I always make sure I hire those assistants that can do that. And now he's done that at certain positions, right? Bobby
has
Turner,
running back, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker.
Yeah, all really good in those areas. But one area where he's just failed to do that has been quarterback this entire time. Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people want to compare him to Bill Walsh, but let's look back at Bill Walsh's coaching record. Like, he didn't just get labeled a genius at 29 and become a game plan, because coordinator is like a really hot shot, superstar, high profile, sexy job.
Yeah.
Position coach is not. You don't make a lot of money. You work really hard. You bounce around. So he was a receivers coach at Cal for 3 years. He was a DB coach at Stanford for 3 years. He was a running back coach for the Raiders for a year. He was a wide receiver coach for the Bengals for 3 years. And he was a quarterback coach for the Bengals for 3 years. I mean, he really, really paid his dues. And it's like, what did he learn along the way? Like, really how to coach and how to improve players. So he didn't need to take Joe Montana and send him to the Jeff Christensen of his day. He was the Jeff Christensen of his day. He had improved Kenny Anderson's footwork. He had improved Dan Fouts' footwork. So by the time he got by the time he got Joe Montana, he'd done it before.
Yeah.
He'd done it before.
Bill Walsh Bill Walsh played. He never played in the NFL, but he was a boxer. But
Correct.
in college, he played like 6 positions in college. Like, he played, what did he play? He played he played quarterback briefly
At San Jose State. Yeah.
I think he played outside linebacker. He played defensive tackle. Like, Bill Walsh played like every position damn near on the field. And so I think, you know, what could Kyle really be what could he be a really good position coach? Maybe receiver would be the only thing that he could actually pull from that playing experience to coach, because he did play wide receiver, but how could he? Yeah, I mean, he's right.
What I'm trying to say is, I feel like to be a master coach, which is what he's aspiring to, you can't skip that portion of your upbringing. He skipped it. Bill Walsh did not. Andy Reid did not. Andy Reid was an offensive line coach at San Francisco State for 3 years, then an O-line coach at Northern Arizona. Like, he didn't get fast-tracked to the NFL. He was in San Francisco State, Northern Arizona. He was at UTEP, O-line coach there for 2 years. Then he went to Mizzou, O-line coach there for 3 years. Then he went to the Packers. Holmgren brought him there. He was an assistant O-line coach and tight ends coach for 5 years. Then he got promoted to quarterbacks coach and assistant head coach for 2 years. Like, guy paid his freaking dues. So when he finally became a head coach, I think he was probably still in his 40s, but he had 15 years of teaching experience, not play calling experience. Teaching experience. And I think it's such an obvious gap in Kyle Shanahan's coaching skill set. He's not a teacher. He can teach coaches, but he can't teach players. And so he's at the mercy of his position coaches. He has a great one at running back. He doesn't have a great one at quarterback. And unfortunately for him, it's a quarterback-driven league. Sorry.
Yeah, it's weird because, you know, it wouldn't bother me if he was able to bring in that guy, right?
Sure.
And unfortunately, Brian Greasy, Scangarillo, those guys, they're not those guys.
We'll see. I don't think so.
Maybe Greasy.
Maybe Greasy. Maybe. But, although we're going to talk about him at length later, and we'll give him the benefit of the doubt as much as we can. But
why don't I always wondered, maybe the money's just not good enough, but why do they not bring in Like, why doesn't Jeff Christensen get a job with the 49ers?
Because it's all Kyle and Shanahan's network. It's who they know. Who is Brian Greasy to the Shanahans? Well, Mike drafted him.
Yeah.
Mike coached him. Who's the wide receiver coach? Leonard Hankerson. Why is Leonard Hankerson the wide receiver coach? Mike drafted him in Washington. It's their network. And they happen to have a great running back coach in their network up their sleeve. That's wonderful. What an asset that Bobby Turner refuses to work for anyone else and doesn't want a promotion and is just super loyal to them. Like, that's great. Yeah. Do you have that at quarterback? No. And no, you just don't. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the problem with the 49ers. Unfortunately, it's just, finding, scouting, developing. I mean, they got lucky with Brock Purdy, but, I don't want to be too negative today, but he just doesn't seem like that elite talent. Trey, maybe, but who's developing him to become that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Here's another little fact. So I'm comparing Kyle to Bill Walsh, Andy Reid, guys who really paid their dues as position coaches and were two of the best teachers in the league, in addition to being play callers. Mike Shanahan, okay? Mike Shanahan was an offensive coordinator in the NFL, was an offensive coordinator at Eastern Illinois by 26 years old. So in his whole life, he was a position coach for 5 years, Mike Shanahan. So the Shanahans are not player teachers. They are coordinators. You understand? They're your favorite coordinator's favorite coordinator, but they are not hands-on teachers. That's not what they're in the game for. They're all about the X's and O's and the play calling and matching his wits against the D coordinator's wits. It's not about, they're not good at developing the quarterback. They've never been able to do that from Mike to Kyle. And that's just what you're getting in business with when you're getting the Shanahans. What they're teaching is their scheme. What do they teach? What all the words mean. It's a two-sentence. Every play is a freaking mouthful. That's what they're teaching. Right. And when they have success, it's because the players have bought in and fit it.
They're system coaches.
That's what they are.
They know a system. They teach that system, and if you can fall in line in that system, you'll have success. But they're not developing players individually to become better. They're not improving players individually. Now, maybe Forrester, Kosaric, those guys.
Those guys do.
Those guys are.
But name a quarterback that's ever gotten better under Kyle Shanahan. Ever.
There really isn't one.
Or Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have a little initial success, and then it usually tapers off. Or it doesn't work altogether. Matt Ryan is the one guy who had a better second year than the first year. Well, we don't know where that was going to go after that. I mean, that was short-lived.
I mean, by how much? I mean, he was already doing pretty damn good. Matt Ryan,
I
mean, you're talking about like incremental improvement. And that was probably because of the offensive system, and that's a whole other subject, because when you look at the Matt Ryan Atlanta Falcons offense, they were going deep. They were taking deep shots. It looked different from this 49ers offense that we've seen for the last 6 years. But I mean, there's no history of it. There's no track record of it to draw from. So you can't say that they have, because there just isn't evidence of it. So look, a lot of people say Brock Purdy, but I don't really buy that. I mean, Brock Purdy, did they really improve Brock Purdy that much, or is this just Brock Purdy being Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I think they just put a better team around Brock Purdy than he's ever had.
Yeah, because when I watched his college tape, he looks pretty much. He was doing the same stuff in college that he's doing here. He just has a lot better weapons around him.
Yeah. So look, I mean, Kyle Shanahan does bring in good coaches. You got to give him credit, and him and his dad have a good network. But really what they are they're very specialized offensive coordinators who know a very specific scheme, and they aren't teachers the way that Andy Reid, Mike Holmgren, Bill Walsh were, in addition to being play callers. So they really are at the mercy of their position coaches. They need great position coaches at every freaking position, because they can't add to that their own. So what have the Shanahans had for 25 years? The best running back coach in the league.
Yeah.
And so they always are going to have a good running game. You can count on that. But Bobby Turner's 75 years old. He stepped away for 3 games last year, and the Niners were 1-2, and he came running back. Eventually, he's going to retire. What's going to happen to Kyle?
Well, you brought up a great point. I think we should just reiterate. You said the 49ers and, Shanahan and Kyle both had Bobby Turner, great running backs coach, and they both had great running offense, right?
Yeah.
What they haven't had is good quarterback developers. And what
they had John Elway, Steve Young, Matt Ryan, 3 guys who were developed by other coaches. Other than that, it's just been just a wreckage of guys who failed or got hurt.
And that's why, for me, that's what they need. That's why I keep saying over and over again.
Yeah, they need Steve Young, dog. They need John Elway. Go get him, baby.
That's what they need. They need that in order to get over the hump. Now, it's not saying they can't win a Super Bowl. They've gotten close. Maybe they can. It's just it's a lot less likely without that guy. Like if you're trying to win with a run game and a defense without that guy, it's tough, especially nowadays. The further the NFL goes down the line, it just seems like it's more and more necessary. And to think that they're going to develop a Sam Darnold or a Brock Purdy or a Trey Lance, all three of those guys, like Brock Purdy doesn't have that elite talent level. Sam Darnold has a history of just being bad mentally. Trey Lance has no experience. So why should we be confident that they're going to be able to develop any of these guys and make them better?
I'm not, but I think the reason Kyle's doing this instead of just finding a ready-made quarterback that knows he can win with is I think he's so obsessed with the credit. Remember, his dad's not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, his dad has this tremendous coaching tree. His system is like the dominant system in the NFL. He won 2 Super Bowls, 3 if you count when he was an offensive coordinator. No Hall of Fame. His peers think there's something missing with him. What is it? Well, you're a scheme coach, and you rode John Elway's. You didn't develop him, and you rode him to 2 Super Bowls, and Steve Young. So Kyle, I think, is a little aware of that, and he's trying to show he can do it without a Hall of Fame quarterback, man. And that makes this really, if that's the truth, it makes his whole endeavor kind of pointless, man. Like, what are we doing here in Santa Clara?
Part of me feels like there may be some truth to that, but I also feel like it's just he's not good at it. He's not good at scouting quarterbacks. He's not good at developing quarterbacks.
It's simple as that.
I think he would love to have Patrick Mahomes on his team. He just didn't recognize that Patrick Mahomes was going to be Patrick Mahomes, right?
Simple as that. Also, if he was coaching Patrick Mahomes, would Mahomes even be this good, or would he be hurt all the time? How about that?
Well, Andy Reid is really good at catering his offense around his players versus Kyle's trying to find players that
the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Every time Kyle Shanahan brings in a player, it's like, oh, he's going to be like this other player he had in the system in the past. Like, yeah, everyone fits a little role that he's done before. And the reason he doesn't bring in offensive linemen beyond the left tackle is because they're not toys that he can play with. There's nothing he can do. They just block. That's it. Blocking's important, but he can't like put him in motion or split him out wide, or it's like there's nothing he can do with them that makes him look smart. It's not fun. They're not toys. He likes his toys. You have all the toys, man. You need protection, insurance. Be a grown up.
I would gladly, not gladly, because I like these guys, but I would sacrifice a few players on the 49ers for an elite offensive line and an elite quarterback. I would gladly do it,